Hi, my name is Ara, and I'm not too sure if I'm getting married civil or in a church, but I want to know how do I apply for my marriage license. Thank you for your question, and I'm sure that there's a lot of people who are asking the same question. So here goes, okay? The first thing I want to ask you guys is, are you 18 years old and above? Okay, because if you're not, I am so sorry to tell you, you cannot get married. Okay, so only people who are 18 years old and above. Now, another point is 18 to 25 years old. Okay, this age group still needs parental consent. Okay, which means that I'm hoping that if you're between 18 to 25, that your parents actually approve of your marriage, because you can't get married without their consent. Okay, but if you're 26 and above, then that's no problem. You can easily file for your marriage license. Okay, and then my other point that is still important to note, even though it's more than likely not going to happen, it says here that you and your partner should not be related by blood up to the 4th degree. Okay, so those are the two basic premises. Now let's go to the documents that you need to prepare. Number 1, you need to have your certified birth certificate. Okay, this is called the NSO certified, or I think it's now called PSA. So all you have to do is order it online or go to any NSO office and get a certified copy of your birth certificate. Just make sure though that your name is your correct name, meaning it's the actual spelling in all of your other legal documents, because if it is different, then you may need to handle that. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2, you also need your Senomar. What is a Senomar? It is a certificate of no marriage, which by the name simply says that it's a certificate that says that you've never been married before. Okay, so that's number 2. And then number 3, you also need to have a certificate of attendance for family planning or responsible parenthood. Okay, so some of the municipalities offer this in their city, but some also accepts like certificate that you attended a family planning seminar and you give it to them. So each city actually differs with their requirements. So, but these are the basic points or basic documents that you need to prepare. But between you and your partner, you just make a decision which city you will be applying it for. So for example, if you are from Las Piñas and your partner is from Quezon City, so you just pick one. All right, and by the way, your marriage license will only be valid for 120 days. So which means that if you're planning your wedding on December 30, for example, then you have to count 120 days before. But I would recommend that you actually apply it not super exact on the date, like 128 days from the time you applied is December 30, but make it a little bit further down so that there's a little bit of a buffer just in case you actually change dates, right? So which means that you won't have any problems in the marriage license, because after the 120th day it will automatically cancel. So now we're gonna discuss some of the special cases, what you need to do if you're any of these special cases. Okay, first is if you're annulled. So if you're annulled, you need to submit a copy of your certificate of finality of annulment and your certificate of registration to the civil registrar. So this is a file or a document that shows that your annulment process was granted and that you are officially single once again. Okay, so that's for those of you who are annulled. And then second, if any of you have a deceased partner, okay, then you need to submit a copy of the death certificate. Okay, now if you are a foreigner, okay, if you're a foreigner, the process will be a little bit more complicated, just a little bit, because other than your document of your passport, okay, you need to get a letter that says that you have the legal capacity to marry, and this is a document that you can actually get from your embassy. Now for the US citizen, they offer you, I mean not offer, they the embassy can provide you an affidavit in lieu of your certificate of legal capacity to marry. So all you have to do is go to your embassy and apply for it. You can actually get it on the same day. All right, and then what else? Once you have all of these documents, all of these papers that you need to submit, then now you can fill out your application form and submit all of these papers. Now you pay a minimal fee. It depends on the municipality once again. So some charges, let's say 100 pesos to 500 pesos. Okay, so you just check with your municipality what are the fees in submitting all of these documents with your application form. Okay, now if you are doing a civil wedding, then after the application of the marriage license, then all you have to do is get 2 witnesses and then get a schedule with the judge, and you can get married. So it's as simple as that. I'm excited to have on board for today. Unahin natin dahil nandito na si Mommy L. I call her Mommy L, but so she's Eleanor Marcelino. Let's give her a round of applause.
Hi, hello.
Ika
Hello
muna.
everyone.
Ayan.
Ngayong gabi sa tanan. Good evening.
Ayan. So si Mommy L actually is of course the owner of El Bonita Events Coordination and Services. And she is, Mommy L, ano na nga ba ang position mo sa, di ba may association dyan sa Davao?
Davao Event Suppliers Association.
Ayun. So Davao Event Suppliers Association. Yan.
Oo.
So she
I'm the
holds a
president
position
of
there.
that.
Yes.
I'm the president and I'm a member of Davao Tourism Council also.
Yan, 'di ba? So kaya naman ang naka-assign kay Mommy L to discuss is about Muslim wedding. So
Okay.
we do hope that you guys will learn from this topic. Okay? Actually ako matututo din ako. So Mommy L, maybe you can enlighten us before you talk about the what's this Muslim weddings. Let's talk about muna yung Catholic weddings, kung ano ba yung mga basic na documentary requirements that they need to be preparing for.
Okay, so granted you already have the church na available, the date, the time, and all. So the first thing that you're going to do is, of course, you have to secure your confirmation and baptismal certificate. And then that confirmation and baptismal certificate dapat may nakalagay na for marriage purpose. Okay? So hindi pwede yung old pa na baptismal and confirmation yung kopong-kopong pa. So you have to request it to the parish where you were baptized or where you had your confirmation. And then after that, when completed, usually you go to the for the interview. So it's either the priest or a particular person who is assigned in the church who's gonna do the interview. And then after that, they're going to schedule you for a pre-cana seminar. So usually, iba-ibang churches, they have different schedule. Usually they do that Saturday and Sunday. Like 8 to 5, some they do 8 to 2, ganyan. So sometimes there are churches na schedule usually weekend yan, the first Saturday, Sunday of the month or second or third Sunday of the month. So depende, iba-ibang simbahan, iba ang schedule nila. So usually nasa 8 to 5 or 8 to 4, ganon. So, and then you will request for a permit to marry. If ever, example, you are from church, tapos yung groom mo is sa Rizal, tapos dito kayo sa Manila. So, you need to get a permit to marry, parang marriage ban request, dadalhin mo yun sa kung saan ka naka-assign. Yeah. So, kung example, kung ibang, so magre-request ka ng permit to marry kung saan kang parokya or parish kasi papadalan mo doon yung permit to marry for your marriage ban. So, maghintay ka ng 3 Saturday kasi it will be 3 Sundays or 4 Sundays, it will be posted during, sometimes they post it or they announce it before the mass or sometimes after the mass. Pina-flash sa screen, sometimes ina-announce. So, pag walang nagkontra, walang sabit, 'di ba? Walang sabit, so the church kung saan yung parish na naka-assign magbibigay ng permit to marry. And you bring that certificate or that marriage ban kung saan ka na simbahan na naka-assign. So after that, pag may permit to marry ka na, So some churches, they would schedule you for a pre-kana pag tapos na yung marriage ban mo. Yung iba naman, pre-kana muna tapos marriage ban. So depende, iba-iba. But these are the things that you need to comply. And then before you will be able to have your marriage ban, kailangan may GKK ka. Yung 'di ba yung parang GKK yung maliit na parish, kukuha ka din doon ng IDS or yung parang information data sheet. I-interview ka pa ng parang yung may mga sa GKK na mga maliliit na chapel kung active ka or not, do you go to church, ganyan. So these are actually yung requirements. So pre-kana seminar, baptismal, and confirmation certificate na dapat may nakalagay for marriage purpose, marriage ban, permit to marry, yung GKK mo kasi hindi mo makukuha yung marriage ban or yung GKK kung walang GKK. And then mag-follow na yung magfa-follow na yung marriage license. And then usually yung iba part din ng kanilang requirements is what do you call this? Mag-confession ka. Usually they would require a day before or they would require on the day confession. Provided the groom and the bride must come early. So usually yan ang mga requirements. Medyo mahaba-haba ang sa church ang proseso.
Yes, that is correct. So, nag-notes ba kayo? I hope you took down notes. Alam mo, ang experience ko sa mga simbahan, Mami L, is meron silang kanya-kanyang, paano ba, parang may kanya-kanya silang mga pet peeves, yung masungit dito, maarte sa ganito, ganyan. So, nothing against the churches, ha?
Iba-iba ang mga personality nila.
Iba talaga ang mga personality. So, pag-pray nyo na lang po na yung kung saan po kayo balak magpakasal is accommodating. May iba
Kasi
naman
usually
very
ang church,
accommodating.
iba talaga. There are some church na pagpupunta ang couple, magtatanong sila, bakante po ba itong petsa na ito? Tapos sasabihin nila, bakante, pwede ba namin i-reserve yan? Some, they will not accept your reservation kung hindi ka na-interview or kung hindi ka nag-submit ng baptismal and confirmation mo. Usually they will not interview you or the couple kung wala ang baptismal and confirmation tapos interview. So pag natapos mo na yun, kasi before ka magpunta ng interview, dala-dala mo na yan. Kasi yung ibang simbahan, they will not reserve it sa'yo. Kahit magbayad ka pa, they will not reserve it kung wala yung baptismal and confirmation certificate mo and interview. So, pag once nakatanggap na sila ng bayad ng 500 mo na reservation, sayo na talaga yung petsa na yon. So,
yes.
Ang sunod mong gagawin, kasi meron akong mga couple before, they just call on the church.
Yes.
Ma'am, bakante po ba ang December 10? Opo, bakante. Tapos sasabihin, pwede i-reserve sa amin. Sige ma'am, punta lang kayo dito. So they understand na parang naka-reserve na yun sa kanila. So, pagbalik nila, nung time na pupunta na sila, wala na, binigay na sa iba. Kasi the church will only, they would only honor the reservation kung na-interview at nag-submit ka na ng confirmation and baptismal mo. Yes. And then, pag nakabayad ka na, kaya ako usually mga couple, what I usually tell them, when we go to the church, we know it's vacant. So the soonest, we bring the confirmation and baptismal and then magpa-interview. Tapos bayad agad. And then they will not allow, and some churches, they would allow the coordinator to pay. Some churches, they will not accept payment from the coordinator. Gusto nila ang couple talaga. And then, some churches naman, pag example, ang partner mo ay seaman, ang girlfriend lang ang nag-aasikaso, dapat meron pang letter na magpapadala pa ng letter of intent sa simbahan na gusto namin magpakasal dyan sa simbahan, etong petsa ako uuwi and all. Meron pang mga ganon, no? Yung ibang simbahan, walang email, kung hindi, i-messenger, sulat kamay, tapos i-print out, ibigay sa kanila yung letter. So kung both naman abroad, they do not honor the coordinator to transact, but they would require it's either the mother of the couple or brother or sisters who would attend to yung parang magpapakita doon, magva-vouch at magpapakilala.
Mm,
So yun yung
yeah.
sa Catholic wedding. So medyo mahaba-haba, hindi mo kaya siyang makuha in 1 month. Siguro 1 month and a half kaya pa. Kasi ang marriage ban ang uunahin eh. So ang marriage ban kasi 4 na Sundays tinatawag sa simbahan. So 4 or 3 Sunday na tinatawag sa simbahan. Tapos tsaka pa makompleto. Yung marriage license naman 11 days after posting. Pag walang problema. So yun yung commonly sa mga simbahan.
Yan, nag-take down notes ba kayo? Napakadami. And totoo po, it can seem very stressful, okay? But if you just follow the instructions and you prepare ahead of time yung mga documentation na kailangan, then hindi po kayo masistress. Yan, okay? So, kaya preparation is key. So, very good. Congratulations to all the 28 people who is in this event tonight dahil kayo po ay already in the first step in having a stress-free wedding. Yan.
Before ako mag-Muslim wedding, siguro unahin ko yung Christian wedding kasi
Yes.
mabilis lang naman ang Christian wedding.
Okay, yes. And actually, marami tayong mga couples na Christian wedding din ang kanilang requirements. All right, so go ahead, Mommy Elle. Let's talk about Christian weddings.
Okay. So Christian wedding actually, ang difference lang is wala na yung mga prikana, 'di ba? Wala na wala nang marriage ban, wala nang mga prikana, wala nang yung mga baptismal confirmation certificate na kinakailangan. So for the Christian wedding, you only need your marriage license. So when you procure your marriage license, it's just actually simple. Yan. Sige, next slide. Okay. So for Christian wedding, so these are actually the requirements for the Christian wedding. So under the Philippine law, which is under the executive order of number 209, both couple or both parties must be able to fulfill. So alam naman natin kanina, it has been said in the video, at least 18 years old. If below 25 years old, you must get a parent's consent. Kailangan kasama ang parents mo. And then dapat to the 4th degree, not related by blood, and no legal impediment. Dahil pag any of this na hindi na fulfill, so your wedding can be null and void, or your marriage would be null and void. So actually, next slide, for the requirements for the Christian wedding, you only have 4. So we have your marriage license. So it was discussed earlier kung ano yung mga kailangan: cedula, valid ID, baptismal, birth certificate, naka-NSO birth certificate, and the certificate of no marriage. Yan yung mga kailangan mo. Tapos magbayad ka lang, you go to the civil registrar. After 11 days of posting, makukuha mo na yung marriage license. So there are only 4 requirements for the Christian wedding: marriage license, and then yung request to celebrate, no, which is if the ceremony is outside of the church, if you want it in the garden, in the beach, or somewhere else, and then interview with the pastor, because some pastors, they will not interview you without the marriage license on hand. And then yung marriage preparation or seminar. But some mga depende kasi kung anong church, some they do not have these requirements anymore. Yung interview with the pastor is already okay. But for foreigners na partner, ang kailangan nyo is certificate of legal capacity to marry, and then kung divorce yan, which is a divorce degree, and then naturalization paper if naturalized Filipino citizen. Okay? So, yun lang ganun lang kabilis ang sa Christian wedding. So, shorter ang list, okay, for shorter than the Catholic wedding kasi you don't need to have the baptismal, the confirmation, the marriage ban, the GKK, and the parish permit. So, you only need 4 requirements for the Christian wedding. Next. Okay, let's now proceed with Islam. Okay, with a Muslim wedding or Islam wedding. This is actually one of the most celebrated occasion in Islam, no? Because marriage is a prophetic tradition. Okay, so next slide. Okay, so alam naman natin who we are referring to. So for us, for the purpose of ano awareness, okay, Muslim personal law, we should know what is Muslim personal law, what is Muslim code, which is in accordance with the presidential decree of 1083, the Muslim laws and the ADA. So we know pag Muslim, this is referred to a person who testify the oneness of God and the prophethood of Muhammad, no? And professes as Islam. Ang Muslim personal law, this refers to all the law na related to their status, personal status, marriage, divorce, and so on and so forth between spouses as provided in the Muslim Code or the Presidential Decree of 1083. When you talk about Muslim laws, these are ordinances and resolution, no, governing the Muslims as found particularly in their Holy Bible, or they call as Quran, and the Hadith. And then when you hear the term ADA or ADA, that is referred to as a customary law. Now, there are actually more than 1.9 billion Muslims around the world. So the traditions usually that are being followed at a wedding can differ greatly depending on the families, depending on their sect, and depending on the culture. But the fundamentals actually of the Islam wedding, or they call that as nikah, no, or and getting married as Muslim is actually the same. Next slide. So next slide, let's talk about Sharia district or the Sharia court. Usually the Muslim wedding, so wala sila, they don't go to the hindi sila nagpupunta sa mga judge or sa Hall of Justice, no, for their nikah. Ang tawag ng wedding ceremony sa Islam or the Muslim wedding, they call it as nikah. Okay, so the term is this is in accordance with the Muslim Code of Presidential Decree 1083, the Sharia district and the circuit courts. What's the difference between the two? Pag sinasabi nating circuit registrar, that is the clerk of the Sharia circuit court. So they are the one who is acting in the performance of the function, no? Of their function under the Presidential Decree 1083. Pag sinabi nating district registrar, ito ay referred to the clerk of the court of the Sharia district. Now, this one that you have to take note of, ang Sharia district court, they do not have any jurisdiction over a real action where one of the parties, no, is not Islam. Dapat for both Islam lang ito. Regardless of the act that it is decided, no, decided the action applying the provision of the civil code. So it is only applicable pag both parties are Islam, unless kung ang isang partner willing magbalik Islam or mag-convert into Islam. So pwede ang Sharia court, doon sila pwede sila sa Sharia court. Okay. Now, nikah or the Muslim wedding, next slide. So, nikah among the Muslim Filipinos actually is not just, no, it's not just an only civil contract, but it is a social institution. So, kaya pag sa Islam, hindi pwede yung intimate wedding. Kasi sa kanila, it is a bonding of ties, big families talaga, big crowd talaga ang Islam. So, it is not just a civil contract, but it is a social institution. Next slide. So these are the terminologies. Next slide. The terminologies that you have to take note of before pa yan, no? So before slides before, please. Slide na, okay. No, before pa yan. Yung una pa, first two slide. Backwards. All right. The important terminologies that you need to know in the Islam, in the nikah or Islam wedding. The wali, no, if you hear about the word wali, this refers to the guardian in marriage. Usually, this is the father of the bride. Pag deceased na ang father of the bride, so it's either the brother or uncle na or the elders, no, sa family. So this is the guardian, and the guardian plays a very important role, or the wali plays a very important role in the nikah. And then ida, this is the ida term is referred to the period of waiting. Especially, no, this is prescribed for a woman whose marriage has been dissolved by death or by divorce, no? The completion of which shall enable her to contract again or to remarry. So the talak, ito yung repudiation or abandonment of the wife by the husband. So gusto na maghiwalay, ang tawag sa'yo talak. Ang tafid or tafwid, this is the right of the wife to repudiate. So common ito maririnig ninyo. Wali, ida, talak, or tafwid. Okay, next. Okay. Ano yung mga noticeable or notable features sa Dika or sa Islam wedding? Ilang taon pwede magpakasal. Sa kanila, 12 to 15 years old, pwede na magpakasal. Legal sa kanila magpakasal, 12 to 15 years old. Kasi they have this presumption na that at the age of 15, no, they have attained already puberty. So 12 years old, pwede na for male, 15 years old, for female, 12 years old. 12 and 15 years old if this is if they already had attained puberty and upon the petition of the wali. Okay? So, pwede sa kanila 12 years old, hala ma'am, minors pa man yan. So, ang tawag dyan sa kanila, the marriage of the minors, they call it as betrothal. Okay? Or betrothal. So, however, that can be annulled, no? That can be annulled either, maybe annulled by either party within 4 years of attaining puberty if the marriage was not voluntarily consummated and neither the father nor the paternal grandfather, no, serve as a wali. So kung walang approval ng wali, nagpakasal-kasal lang ng ganon, so pwede mag-file ng annulment. At kung walang nangyari after noon, so, walang nangyari between the couple, pwede yun. So, ito yung one thing that it should make, for it to become valid, it should be free consent of the marrying parties should be given. So, ibig sabihin, hindi pinersa. So, usually the wali has to talk to the bride. No, gusto mo na ba talaga magpakasal? So, it should be free consent of the marrying parties and the presence and consent of the wali. So, for this age, 12 to 15 years old, importante talaga ang wali, ang elders nila, no? And then, if done without the consent of the couple and any of this, no, validity requirements is violated, penalty of imprisonment or fines or both for illegal solemnization of marriage can be given. Now, next slide, let's go to the Article 33 of the Family Code says that ano ba ang requirements? Sa totoo lang, ang requirements among or marriage among Muslims or among members of the ethical communities may be performed validly without, okay, the necessity of a marriage license. No, provided that they are solemnized in accordance with their customs, rights, and practices. So, pag under sa Article 33 ng Family Code of the Philippines sa PD 1083, hindi kailangan na meron silang marriage license na mag-a-apply ka sa civil registrar. Pwede, ang gumagawa niyan, it's either the couple would provide the contract, okay, meron ng template, or the imam or the officiant who makes the marriage license. But not necessarily na magpunta pa ng marriage ng local civil registrar. So yan, that may be performed validly without the necessity of the marriage license, basta solemnized in accordance with their customs, with their rights, and their practices. So, what are we talking about? No, the custom, the rights, and the practices. Next slide. So, no marriage, accordingly, this should there should be a completion of these essential requirements or requisites. Dapat may legal capacity pa rin to marry, may mutual consent, meron tayong tinatawag yung ijab or yung proposal, and the gabul or acceptance, and then the same, kailangan at least dalawang competent persons to witness after binigyan ng consent ng wali or ng guardian or ng father. And of course, hindi talaga, part talaga ng tradition nila itong customary dower or the mahir, which is duly, ito naman, should be duly witnessed by the two competent persons. So if you were to look, ito yung dapat na na requisite, essential requisite ng kanilang nika, no? So pwedeng walang marriage license, okay? Valid ang kasal, walang marriage license, but provided that solemnization should be done within their customs, their rights, and practices. So, ito yung apat na kailangan. Legal capacity, may mutual consent, may ijab or the proposal, tapos merong kabul, merong dalawang witness, pero dapat merong consent ng wali, and then dapat merong dowry. So lahat yan actually meron niyang kasulatan. Nilalagay nila yan sa certificate. So, next slide. Okay. So ano yung ceremony requirements ng nikah or ng wedding sa Islam? So, ang ginawa ko is these are the six, no? Ceremony requirements of an Islam wedding. Proposal, or they call that as ijab, okay? In Islam, the man or the family or the woman or the bride, no, can do the proposal. But oftentimes, of course, ang lalaki talaga ang nagpo-propose. And then for the acceptance or the kubul, or some books would call it as kabul, okay? So, pag nagpo-propose na sa'yo, hindi naman ibig sabihin you can accept it right away, no? Both the couple don't have to say yes right away. The couple can meet many times, no? They can meet many times to get to know each other. Parang ligawan din na stage, no? But provided they meet in a place, in a public place, no? Or close to their, or proximity, or close ng kanilang mga lugar, close sa kanilang bahay-bahay, or dapat sa yung iba dapat merong chaperon pa, and then ceremony na the couple would repeat during the ceremony. Etong word kasi na kibul-kibul, 3 times yan gina-mention, ibig sabihin tinatanggap mo na magpakasal ka. So, provided pag during acceptance, pag hindi ka pa sure or pag-isipan pa, minsan binibigyan sila ng time para mag-date-date to get to know each other, provided nasa public or malapit sa kanilang mga community or bahay-bahay yung nakikita sila, yung hindi pa tago. So ang wali, sinabi natin kanina, the wali or the father of the bride, no, gives away her daughter, no, on the day of the wedding. And then the mahir or the doer, ito yung obligatory gift, no? Obligatory gift from the groom, no, for the bride, or her family can request it. The bride or the family can request it. It can also be, this is actually the mahir or the dowry or the doer. This is a symbolism of the responsibility of the man that he has in providing for her and for the family. And then pag kompleto na itong proseso na to, itong requirements na ito, proposal, acceptance, the wali, the doer, so they can now proceed with the so-called nikah or the wedding, Islam wedding. Now, saan? What are the venues, the nikah ceremony venue? It can be done in the mosque, it can be done in the bridal Noy lobat ako, sorry. Mosque, in the bride's house, or in the wali house, or in the father or the guardian's house. And pwede din yung iba ngayon modern is yung sa hotel. Some they do in an events place, no? So usually sino-sino ang officiant who can officiate the nikah, no? They call their priest, some they call it ustad, some would call the rabbi. So actually, Islam priest lang sila lahat. So imam, ustads, the rabbi, or the qasi, or the madhum, or they are known as the marriage officers in the mosque. Okay? So yan yung ceremony requirements ng nikah. Okay, so next slide. Okay, requirements of the nikah. Actually, during the ceremony itself, the only requirement for the nikah is only the signing of the contract. No? The signing of the contract, nothing else. The contract which the imam can provide, no, or the couple can get their own, making the marriage contract legal, no, making the marriage contract legal according to the civil religious law. Okay? So wala talaga silang parang template na marriage license na template, no, sa kanila or yung marriage contract. So yung iba kaya makita nyo sa Islam wedding, yung marriage contract nila iba-iba. Okay? Iba-ibang disenyo, pero yung ibang words din, yung mga wording din hindi din naka-template, iba-iba. So depende sa kanilang sa ustads or sa imam kung ano yung kanyang format. Okay? Next, so requirements of a Muslim wedding or a nikah. Next slide. Okay? So marriage registration is actually obligatory. Okay? So magre-register sila doon sa kanilang circuit registrar or sa Sharia court. It is actually obligatory, backed up by the penal sanction of fines if failure to register for the changes in their civil status. Okay. It should be reported within 30 days, no, after the date of the marriage. Reported to the circuit registrar at the Sharia court, or sa municipality where the Sharia circuit court exists. Kung walang Sharia court sa area, no, it shall be registered at the local civil registrar office or the LCR. So, the usual, you need 5 copies of that, yung kanilang marriage registry or yung kanilang marriage contract. Kailangan 5 copies because 1 would go to the contracting party, 1 would go to the civil registrar general, 1 would go to the Sharia court or the circuit registrar, 1 would go to the district registrar if marriage was registered at the Sharia court, and then 1 copy goes to the solemnizing officer. So yan, the certificate, ano ba ang dapat nakalagay? The contents of the certificate of marriage. Dapat nakalagay ang following information. Yung amount ng kanyang maher or ng dowry, dapat nakalagay dun sa certificate of marriage. The amount, the first or subsequent marriage, dapat nakalagay kung first marriage ba, second marriage ba ito, kung divorce ba ito, and then the tafwid if granted and such other stipulations. So, yan yung important content. So I think that's actually the requirements for an Islam wedding. So if you have any questions, you may ask your questions. Thank you so much.
Yes, wonderful,
Oo.
wonderful.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Peace upon you and God's mercy and blessing.
Ang
So
galing-galing.
yan.
Yes. Wow, I was just saying, Miss Mommy L, when you were lowbat kanina, sabi ko, we're learning so much. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people have no idea. Like me, it's my first time to understand this better. I've done Muslim weddings, but for the most part, pag Muslim kasi, they say na kami na bahala dun sa ceremony. Just take care of
Yes.
the other part. So, hindi ko talaga alam kung ano yung mga process. Pero, alam ko meron yung process na parang they knock on the door and then may
Iba-ibang
iabot.
tribo, iba-iba.
Iba-iba yung mga
Iba-ibang
style.
tribo. Kasi
Mm.
pag tausug, iba yung kanilang pag tausug kasi, if they do it in the mosque, yung bride would only wait in a corner, okay, in a particular covered corner with the bridesmaid. The father of the bride and the groom will get married at the mosque.
Mhm.
Doon
Yeah.
sila sa mosque. So, ang bride, kumbaga, standby ka lang dyan, no?
Yes.
Sitting-pretty ka lang
Ang
dyan.
magsa-signing ng contract is
Oo.
the father
So,
and the groom.
hindi pa. Bale, doon sila i-officiate sa mosque. After that, susunduin na ang bride. So,
Okay.
pag tapos na yung ceremony ng father, no, the wali and the groom with the witnesses at the mosque, with the imam and the ustad, susunduin ang bride, then pupunta na sila sa reception. So, pagdating sa reception, ang mangyayari na lang doon is yung ring ceremony and the signing of
Signing of the
contract.
Contract,
Oh, so
yes,
yun na lang ang nangyayari doon sa ano, doon sa and then pakain. Oh,
Yes.
and then yung kanilang mga ceremony, yung mga dulang na tinatawag nila, yung 'di ba yung parang may manok tapos may mga colorful na ano na kailangan kumain ng bride, yung mga
Mhm.
symbolism nilang gano'n, yung dulang, tapos meron sila yung pangalay, yung mga dance-dance for the tausug, no? Kasi pag tausug kasi iba, meron silang pag ano yun, yung pagturol tayma, no, na which is ginagawa in advance yun.
Mhm.
Na yung papaliguon pa ang bride, tapos yung groom pupunta, yung igaganyan dito sa ulo, tapos ite-turn ang bride 3 times left and right, ganon. Oh,
Mhm.
so may mga ganon pa yan na mga pagtawsog. Pag mga Maguindanao, Maranao naman, iba naman yung kanilang ano, kasi yung magpadala ng gift, tapos meron yung parang particular amount na, kunyari may tawag na laglag panty, mga ganon. Parang may bayad-bayad na ganon. So, may stages din, may mga magdala-dala ng regalo, ganyan. So, iba-iba. Pero basically, kung requirements ang pag-uusapan, kung ceremony requirements ang pag-uusapan, pareho pa rin yan. May proposal, may acceptance, tapos may wali na permit, merong witness, and then merong mahir or dowry, and then proceed sa nikah. Ganon.
Mhm.
So yun
Mhm.
pa rin actually, iba-iba lang yung kanilang proseso, pero yung ceremony nila isa lang.
Mhm.
Okay? Isa
Mm.
lang din talaga. So,
Mm.
yung pag sa venue na ginagawa, hindi na sa mosque, ang ginagawa, yung bride, nandun sa parang encasement. Nagagawa ka ng parang bahay-bahay doon. Tapos doon sa stage, magpakasal ang father, pati ang groom, yung may handkerchief sa kamay. O pagkatapos noon, puntahan ang bride, tapos papasok na, yun, tapos pagkain na. Ganun lang
Mm.
sila actually kasimple. Ganun
Mm.
lang kabilis.
Mm.
Tapos,
Ayun.
in their ceremony, separate ang mga babae, separate ang mga lalaki.
Mhm.
Okay? So, all the male on the right, all the female on the left.
Mhm.
Ganon sa
Okay.
kanila. Oo. Tapos, pag, syempre, yung attire, your proper dressing, ganon. Kasi hindi pwede mga plunging, mga backless na mga ganon, 'di ba?
Mm.
So, pag Islam wedding, bigyan mo talaga ng panahon for pictorials kasi yan talaga ang gustong-gusto nila, mag-pictorial. Minsan,
Okay.
hindi pa tapos ang program mo, hala, mag-picture na yan sila na mag-picture.
Oo.
Oo,
Okay.
oo.
Grabe, that's a lot of information, but I'm sure for all of our couples who are planning a Muslim wedding that this is very enlightening para sa inyong lahat.
O, di
Okay,
ba? Pwede
so
walang marriage contract, pwede walang
yeah.
marriage license.
Ayan. Okay. So, right now, we are going to open the floor for questions. So, you can either ask your questions on the chat box or you can raise your hand and we can bring you on stage. All right. So, anyone who has questions on any of the topics. So, we showed you kanina yung how to prepare for your marriage license, for the Catholic wedding requirements, for the Christian wedding requirements, and then the Muslim wedding requirements. So, any question? Okay, so ang question ni Miss Eliza, but at any rate, let me read that question. So, yung Senomar po is needed for marriage license? Question mark.
Yes. Mm. Kailangan talaga ang Senomar, Certificate of No Marriage, kasi walang lalabas na marriage license. Kasi yan ang patunay na both kayo ay talagang single, free to
Yes.
marry.
Yes.
Oo.
Okay. And then yung question niya next one, but it is also required sa church before getting an interview. So need po ba ng 2 copies of Senomar?
No need. Only
Mm.
baptismal certificate and confirmation.
Mm-mm.
You only need Senomar and birth certificate for the procurement of the marriage license.
Yeah. Pero siguro depends on your parish. So if
Mm.
your parish is asking that extra requirement, kung kasama sa listahan, then idagdag mo. But on a standard, ang naghahanap talaga nun is yung para sa marriage license.
Oo.
Pero minsan kasi maarte din yung simbahan, Mami El eh.
Oo, 'di ba
Kahit
minsan
na,
may mga simbahan naghihingi pa nga ng one by one photo. Parang sabi ko,
yes.
ha, ano daw, ipa-flash sa screen ang picture,
Oo.
gano'n.
Ganun na nga.
Oo.
Ayan. Okay. So if Miss Alisa, if it is listed na hiningi ng simbahan talaga, then prepare for 2 copies. Otherwise, pwede na yung isa. Okay, we have another question here. What is an interfaith marriage? Yan. What is an interfaith marriage? Okay, let's flash this question.
Ha? Ano?
Ah, sabi niya, what is an interfaith marriage? Can we flash the question? There you go.
Ayun. So like for example, anong religion?
Yes, ano bang religion? So,
Oo. 'Pag interfaith, iba-iba, ibig sabihin iba-iba silang relihiyon,
mm,
gano'n ba? So 'pag
yes.
iba-ibang relihiyon, they have to decide. I have some couple, ang ginagawa, we have 2 wedding ceremony in a day. Kung
Mhm,
talagang example Catholic ang bride, tapos Islam ang groom, o
mhm,
talagang ayaw nila, talagang gusto nila both ceremony. So what we usually do, we do Catholic wedding in the morning, we do Islam wedding in the afternoon, or either way. Meron naman akong na-experience before, 3 wedding ceremony in a day, no? To give respect to each other's faith and belief na lang talaga. So, meron pa silang Islam wedding, may civil wedding pa sila, may Catholic or Christian wedding sila. So, yun. So,
mm,
actually, pag iba-iba ang religion or faith ng couple, so they have to decide, no?
mhm,
So, they have to decide. It's either kung Muslim ang lalaki, it's either ipa-convert niya, pero hindi naman necessarily ine-encourage, depende. Yung iba nagko-convert sila into Islam, they get married in the Islam. O yung minsan ang lalaki ang magko-convert naman to get married into sa church ng babae. So depende kung ano yung pinag-uusapan ninyo. Yung iba naman to respect both faith or to both religions, so they get married in all the all the all the churches that they want para pagbigyan ng lahat,
para everybody happy, walang
para
magtatampo ng
everybody
mga
happy.
magulang.
Oo, kasi meron na akong experience niyan eh, yung hardcore talaga, hardcore Catholic, hardcore
Oo.
naman ang na Islam ang lalaki, tapos ang babae naman hardcore Catholic, tapos ang father ng bride is pastor.
Mhm.
So, ang nangyari, ginawa namin balang 3 wedding ceremony in a day.
Grabe.
Oh,
Lupit.
nag-Islam wedding ceremony sila in the early morning, tapos pagkatapos in the afternoon tawag ito?
Christian. Church.
Nag-church wedding sila. Tapos before sa reception, nag-civil wedding sila nag-Christian wedding sila sa reception. So
Mm.
napagbigyan ang lahat.
Mm. Yeah, okay. All right, here's another question. Maganda to. Can we flash this question? Meron na po ba online pre-CANA seminars, family planning, etc. na available today in this pandemic times? Okay. This one, I have good news for you, Miss Zane Vargas. Actually, just yesterday, we had a great meeting with one of the accredited na speakers in Center for Family Ministries, the one who does Discovery Weekend, the one in Ateneo. So we had a meeting with them, and they actually are offering a seminar that is considered as a pre-CANA seminar. Online.
Online.
Yeah, so online yun. Very good. But for the family planning, that's actually under the government. So for the family planning, I don't know if there are government offices or civil registrar na modern na. I'm not sure. But maybe we can check. Mami Ellie, ikaw may nabalitaan ka na ba? Kasi feeling ko, ano pa sila, Old
Face to
school.
face pa dito, old school pa
Old
yung
school.
iba. Kahit yung ibang simbahan, wala ding online kasi minsan yung mga nagle-lecture sa mga prikana, hindi sila techie.
Yes.
Tapos
Oo.
minsan may mga simbahan, wala ding internet yung kanilang office, mahina ang internet line. So talagang face to face.
Oo.
Pero pwede ka magpa-schedule ng special prikana. 'Di ba
Mm.
dati, yung iba kasing simbahan, instead of one whole day, 8 to 4, nag-special prikana sila. Minsan nagiging half day na lang instead of 2 days.
Mm.
Depende sa simbahan na papag-usapan minsan.
Yeah, you just have to ask our churches as well.
Mm.
Okay.
Kasi iba-ibang simbahan, iba-iba din silang requirements eh.
I know, right? So, it could be good news or bad news. Good news kung mabait yung requirements nila. Bad news kung medyo maarte sila. Okay, we have another question here from Miss Sandy Suplido. For Catholic marriage, do we receive a marriage certificate? Then, do we still need to request for PSA copy of marriage certificate? Ayan.
For Catholic marriage, usually, lalo na yung mga iba na, di ba, mag-abroad, mag-change status, kailangan sa HR, the church can issue you a certificate.
Mm-mm.
Certification na doon nag-solemnize. Kasi di ba, usually, sa Catholic, di ba, 4 copies yon yung pinipirmahan ninyo. Kasi one goes to you, one goes to the church, one goes to the local civil registrar, and one copy goes to the PSA. Usually, lumalabas ang encoding sa PSA mga 3 months pa. Pero kung kailangan mo na ng certification, pwede ka mag-request ng certification kung saan ka na simbahan nagpakasal.
Yes. Yan. Yes. And yung question niya, then do we still need to request for PSA? Yes, you can. Kumbaga, for your own personal copy na
Yes.
yon. Yes, for your own personal copy. Yung copy na, yung color
Yung
yellow.
naka-yellow na, yung meron ng
Yes.
yung meron ng logo ng NSO.
Yes. Oo, ayan. Okay, magbibigay lang ako ng heads up para sa ano. Ito kasi personal experience ko to. Para sa mga nagki-Christian ceremony. Okay? Ako kasi, nag-beach wedding ako, Mommy L, actually. Sa Palawan ako nag-beach wedding. What I learned, okay, so yung nagkasal sa amin is hindi niya final yung marriage certificate
Hala.
in Palawan.
Oh.
So, umuwi na ng Palawan, hindi siya naasikaso. Dapat po, lalo na sa, sa Catholic, hindi to nagiging problema eh. Kasi
Oo. Kasi
ginagawa
ang
talaga
church
yon.
mismo ang
Yes,
naghahatid.
gumagawa. O, yung sa akin, like in my case, in my wedding, so I had a wedding, it was a beach wedding in Palawan. And so, parang after 1 year, wala pa rin akong marriage certificate. And then I was, change name, applying for passport. And then yung anak ko, ina-applyan ko ng passport, di ko ma-applyan. Kasi yung pangalan niya, hindi, alam mo yon. So, ang
Oo.
daming effect. And then yun nga, the learning is that hindi nga siya final in Palawan. So, I had to
Okay.
go back to Palawan para ako mismo
Yung pastor, hindi
hindi.
nag-submit ang pastor.
Yes, hindi nagsabit si pastor. And then si pastor is nasa probinsya na din, hindi na rin niya maaasikaso and all that. So, ako na yung I had to go back. Yun, gastos ulit, ganyan. Yun. And then, submit para magkaroon ng ano. So, and then, ang submission naman doon is parang late registration
Late
naman.
registration. Kasi
Yun.
dapat kasi within 120 days upon release of the marriage contract or marriage license, dapat magpakasal kayo within 120 days. Kaya kung hindi, mapaso yun. So mag-request ka na naman ulit.
Yes.
Kukuha ka na naman ulit ng sedula, ng Senomar, birth certificate, back to zero ka na naman.
Yeah.
Tapos after wedding, usually, it must be, pag tapos na yung wedding, yung marriage contract na sinay ninyo, dapat it must be submitted within 15 days.
Yes.
Kasi
That
kung
kung
hindi,
saan.
oo, kung
Oo.
saan ka nagpakasal, kung sa Palawan ka, doon sa Palawan Local Civil Registrar yan,
Yes.
isasubmit.
Correct. Yan. So, yun nga. So, that's a lesson learned. But anyway,
Buti na lang hindi na null and void ang wedding mo.
okay lang, Mami L. That's a different story. That's a different episode to discuss, okay?
Yeah,
But anyway,
oo.
so ayun nga po. So, just
And
in
then
case
pag
na you're...
merong discrepancy, pero pala lately meron akong
Oo.
na-file sa local civil registrar, may discrepancy sa Senomar, ang middle initial yata ng father. So gumawa ka lang ng affidavit of discrepancy tapos isasubmit sa local civil registrar.
Yan, correct. Okay. So, what I'm trying to point out here also is if you're doing a Christian ceremony and kumbaga, minsan kasi yung may nagkakasal lang yung reverend, tapos hindi, yung walang, ang tawag dito, parang walang support system yung reverend na yon. Kumbaga, walang
Oo.
maglalakad on their behalf.
Wala
So,
siyang
wala
secretary.
siyang secretary, ganyan. Yan, ang kailangan nyong alamin. So, kaya sabi nyo, pastor or reverend, kayo na rin po ba ang magpa-file nito in the registrar, civil registrar, lalo yung mga Tagaytay wedding, ganyan. Kasi baka mamaya, hindi pala nila gawin, so kayo po yung mag-face ng repercussions.
Yeah.
Okay, yan. Okay, so other questions? May questions pa po ba? Ayan, we're down to our last few minutes. Okay, so we're
Ang
gonna...
pinakamadali is Christian wedding. Yun yung pinakamadali na requirements.
Actually, totoo sa requirements. So may questions pa yata tayo, may pahabol pa. What's the difference? Okay, let's flash this question. What's the difference between church wedding and civil wedding in terms of rights? In terms of karapatan? Wow, parang to tulfo?
Very legal.
Parang pareho
Church
lang
wedding and civil wedding. Sabi
sige, Mami
nila,
El, ikaw.
sabi nila, 'di ba, mas strong daw ang civil wedding. No, both are actually the same, no? Pareho lang ang karapatan nila. Kaso sa church wedding, pag na-annulled ka at gusto mo ulit magpakasal, walang annulment actually talaga sa church wedding, walang annulment. So nag-a-annul ka sa civil aspect. Pero sa talata ng simbahan, married ka pa rin. So kung gusto mo, kung kahit annulled ka na, like example, ako, nagpakasal ako sa church, na-annulled na ako. Kung magpapakasal man ako ulit, hindi na ako pwede magpakasal ulit sa simbahan. Unless nagsulat ako sa Santo Papa, meron akong tinatawag na papal pardon.
Yes.
Kaya si Sharon Cuneta matagal din kasi nagsulat pa yan sa Santo Papa kung pagbibigyan ka. So, annulled ka sa simbahan pero sa civil aspect hindi pa rin. So kung
baliktad, Mami El, baliktad.
Baliktad. Yes, nalito ako. So, annulled ka. So pag annulled ka na, hindi ka na pwede magpakasal ulit sa simbahan. Okay? So, yun. So, ang civil, actually, kung rights lang, pareho lang naman ang rights. Yan. Kung strength, pareho lang naman ang strength. Ang ano lang yan, isang definition lang yan, kasal ka pa rin. Okay? Kasal ka pa rin. So, pero when it comes to rights and strength, pareho lang. So, sa simbahan, walang annulment. Sa civil aspect, meron. Sa simbahan, isang beses ka lang pwede magpakasal. So,
correct.
Yun.
Yes,
pero
actually,
sa civil, pwede. Dalawang
Mami
beses.
El, nagkaroon na ako ng client na gano'n, nag-submit talaga sila, as in isasubmit pa yun sa Vatican. Kaya good luck. Pero na-approve naman. So kaya nakasal pa din sila. Ayan. Okay? So, okay, I think we answered a lot of questions. So to our dear brides and grooms, our dear lovebirds, I hope that we were able to enlighten you sa ating mga questions. By the way, advance notice to all of our soon-to-weds who are our regular visitors of our community event. Syempre, you can already check out yung mga booths. So, in the booth section, makikita nyo na po yung mga pangalan ng iba't ibang mga exhibitors who will be part of the virtual wedding expo which will be happening on July 30, 31, August 1. Okay? But, it doesn't mean po na sa July 30, 31, August 1 pa kayo mag-check ng suppliers. Pwede na kayo mag-check now. You can check all their details now. Para pagdating sa last 3 days of our bridal fair period, ano na lang yon, booking time. Di ba, Mami El? Yan. Kumbaga, ngayon, na kayo, syempre, inquire muna, compare, check, ganyan. Tapos pagdating dun sa last 3 days, ayun na yung last days para book tayo and get the best deals, discounts, and of course, to be part of our raffle, which is 100,000 pesos in cash.
Wow, yaman.
Yes, di
Malaking
ba?
ano na yun ha, pambayad na yun sa photo video.
Tama. The
Thank you for
last.
listening. I hope you learned something today.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.